The plastic container hit the ground, and 6 muffins scattered across wet concrete. Amara didn't scream, didn't curse. She crouched, picked up every single one with her bare hands, wiped the container on her dress, placed them back on the table, and stood up straight. Chin up, eyes forward. Every other vendor on Martin Street was running from the rain. Amara had already done the math. 6 muffins, dinner, laundromat money. She was not moving. 3 blocks away, a black SUV moved through the wet street like it owned the road. Inside, cedar, leather, and the particular silence of a man who had stopped being surprised by anything a long time ago. Jung-Nu sat in the back seat watching the city slide past. Sharp jaw, dark eyes that didn't blink enough, hands too still for someone his age. He ran 3 legitimate businesses and 1 empire nobody mentioned in polite company. Beside him, Vivienne scrolled her phone. Beautiful, bored. "Can we stop somewhere warm, baby?" He didn't answer. His eyes had snagged on something outside the window. A woman standing in the rain, not running, not flinching, standing like the storm had asked her permission and she'd said, "Go ahead, I'm still here." Something moved in his chest, old and unfinished. "Stop the car." Kang glanced in the mirror. "Sir." "Stop the car." Vivienne looked up for the first time. He was already reaching for the umbrella, already opening the door, already stepping into rain that soaked his shoulders immediately, and he did not care at all. He walked toward her. The umbrella snapped open over her table. She turned, and the world cracked open. Not for him, not yet. He was still looking at a stranger he felt pulled toward for reasons he couldn't name. But for her, everything cracked, because she knew that face. She had spent 7 years trying to unknow it, and it had never once worked. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out clean. Then one word fell from her like it had been sitting behind her teeth the whole time, waiting for exactly this. "You." He frowned, polite, careful, the look of a man who doesn't recognize her yet. "Excuse me." "You," louder now, her hand found the edge of the table. "Jung, it's me." He studied her face, moving through the soaked head wrap, the oversized dress, 7 years of distance, until he reached her eyes. Brown, with gold at the center. He knew those eyes. He had kissed those eyes closed in a life that felt like it belonged to a completely different man. Samara. Her name in his mouth, after 7 years of silence. It hit her like something physical, like a door she'd been leaning against her whole body suddenly swinging open. She exhaled, half laugh, half something she wouldn't let finish. "Hi," she said. He stood there in the rain, holding an umbrella over her muffin table, completely forgetting that Vivienne existed. "Hi," he said back, like a boy, like an absolute idiot, like someone who had just been found after a very long time of being lost and didn't know yet whether to be relieved or terrified. Queens, if you are watching this channel for the very first time, you just walked in at the right moment. Drop in the comments where you are watching from right now. I genuinely want to know which corner of the world is feeling this story tonight. Subscribe so you never miss what we build here, because what just happened on this sidewalk, is only the beginning, and it is about to go places nobody is ready for. The SUV door opened. Vivienne stepped out in heels that had no business on a wet street. She walked toward Jung-Nu with the energy of a woman calculating exactly what was happening and liking none of it. She stopped beside him, looked at Amara, looked at the muffins, looked at Jung-Nu. "Who is this?" Not a question, an audit. Jung-Nu didn't answer fast enough. That 1 second of silence said everything. Vivienne's jaw tightened because she heard every word of it. Amara didn't flinch. She had not done anything wrong. She would not perform guilt for a woman she didn't owe anything to. "An old friend," Jung-Nu said. Vivienne smiled, all surface. "An old friend." She repeated it the way you repeat something to confirm it sounds exactly as suspicious as you thought. "In the rain, on a Tuesday." "I'll handle this." "Handle it," she tilted her head. Interesting word choice for an old friend. Something honest passed between Amara and Vivienne in that moment. two women on opposite sides of the same man, both understanding something the man in the middle hadn't said out loud yet. It lasted less than 2 seconds. It covered a lot of ground. "Get back in the car, Vive." Not unkind, not asking. Vivienne held his eyes for 3 seconds. Then she turned, walked back to the SUV, got in, and did not close the door all the way. She was listening, he knew it. Amara knew it, everyone knew it. Jung-Nu turned back to Amara, still holding the umbrella over her. Neither of them had mentioned that. "You live in this city," he said. 2 years now. The muscle in his jaw moved. 2 years. Don't what? Don't do the math out loud at me. Not here." He closed his mouth, looked at her table, looked at her dress, looked at everything she was carrying and the way she held herself, and then looked away quickly because it was doing something to him he didn't have the architecture for on a public sidewalk. "Are you okay?" It landed wrong. She heard the money in it. The guilt. The gap between his world and the folding table between them made suddenly, brutally visible. "I'm selling muffins in the rain, Jung. Define okay." He reached into his jacket. "Don't." His hand stopped. "Whatever you're reaching for, put it back." He dropped his hand, recalibrated, looked at her for a long moment like he was trying to figure out which version of her was standing in front of him and whether he had the right to speak to any of them. "Can I get you out of the rain? That's all I'm asking. I have 6 muffins left. I'll buy all 6. That's not." Amara, just her name, the full weight of 7 years compressed into 3 syllables. "Please." She looked at him. Rain hammered the umbrella. The street moved around them like the world had no idea what was happening inside this 4-foot circle. She picked up her container, folded her table under her arm, walked toward the cafe on the corner without another word. He followed, still holding the umbrella over her. Neither of them looked back at the SUV. Before they reached the door, heels hit the pavement behind them. Jung-Nu. He stopped, turned. Vivienne stood in the rain now, arms crossed, voice doing the careful work of staying controlled in public. "I am not sitting in that car while you walk into somewhere warm with someone you can't explain to me." "Vives." "Who is she?" "I told you." "You told me, old friend. That is a delay, not an answer, and we both know it." Amara kept her eyes forward. She was not turning around. This was not her confrontation to enter. "She's someone from before," Jung-Nu said. "Before what?" Silence, and that silence was its own complete sentence. Vivienne's voice dropped. "If you walk through that door, I'll explain everything tonight, face to face. You have my word." "I need more than your word right now." "Tonight, Vivienne, everything." 3 seconds. She held his eyes and made her decision. Then she turned, got back in the SUV, and this time the door closed completely. Jung-Nu stood still for one breath. Then he pulled the cafe door open. Amara walked through without looking at him. Inside Mambo's, the air was warm and smelled like coffee and fried plantain in relief. Amara unwound her soaked head wrap. Tea for her. Coffee for him that he wouldn't drink. The muffin container sat on the seat beside her. Small, slightly battered, the most honest thing on the table. Neither of them spoke for a full minute. Then they both spoke at the exact same moment. "I looked for." "Why did you?" They stopped. And then, despite 7 years, despite wet clothes and Vivienne and everything unsaid, they both made a sound that was almost a laugh, quiet and pained. The laugh of 2 people who recognize each other below the level of language. "You first," he said. "No, you." He folded his hands. "I looked for you after you left, for a long time." "I know." Something sharpened in him. "You know. Your men came to my aunt's house in Baltimore. And I told her to say she hadn't seen me." The silence that followed had weight. He leaned back slowly. When Jung-Nu was most damaged, he went very quiet, quieter than usual, and that quiet was somehow worse than anything loud. "Why, Amara?" She looked at her tea, looked at the rain on the window, looked at him. Because I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after I left. The composure holding Jung-Nu together came apart by 1 degree. Just one, but on his face 1 degree was enormous. He said nothing. She kept going because stopping meant never starting again. I was alone. I was scared. I knew what your world looked like from the inside, Jung. I had seen what it did to people who got close to it. And I looked at that pregnancy test and I thought, I cannot bring a child into this. I will not. You didn't give me a choice. No, not defensive, not breaking, just exact. I didn't. You don't get to take that from me. I was the one who was pregnant. Her voice stayed level. I was the one who would raise that child while you ran an empire. I made the decision I had to make. I am not asking you to agree with it. I'm not asking for forgiveness tonight. I am telling you the truth. After 7 years, that has to mean something. He stared at her. A child, he said, like he was still trying to make the word fit inside his body. A daughter. The air left him completely. How old? She just turned 7. 7 years. The number detonated through him slowly. He had been building and controlling and expanding for 7 years, losing sleep over the wrong things, sitting in rooms full of dangerous people feeling completely at home. And somewhere in this city, in this rain, there had been a little girl learning to exist, first steps, first words, first everything, without him knowing she was alive. What is her name? Amara watched his face before she answered, checking whether he could hold it. Nuri. He closed his eyes. Just for a moment. But she saw everything that moved across his face in that moment, and it cost her something she couldn't name, so she looked at her tea and kept it there. Queens, she just told him. 7 years. A daughter. And I need to stop right here because I need to know where you stand. Like this video if you feel everything Amara is carrying right now, because she made this choice alone and she has been living inside it every single day. And tell me in the comments, was she wrong to keep Nuri from him? Or did she do exactly what a mother had to do? Drop your honest answer, because this comment section is about to split straight down the middle, and I want to hear from both sides. He opened his eyes. The grief had moved through him in seconds and hardened into something else. She had known this was coming. She'd been waiting for it. 7 years, Amara. Yes. She has been alive for 7 years, and I didn't know. Yes. I had a daughter. The words came out slow and deliberate and damaged. And you let me not know that. Don't explain it again. Low, compressed. I heard you. I'm not arguing the explanation right now. I'm sitting with the fact. 7 years, first steps, first words, first everything. Gone, I don't get that back. She said nothing, because there was nothing to say to that. He was right. The damage was real, and she owned every gram of it, and the only thing she could do was hold it without flinching. Did she ask about me? He said, quieter. Yes. What did you tell her? That her father was someone I loved very much who lived a dangerous life, and I made a choice to keep her safe. Something in his face broke and rebuilt itself in the space of 2 seconds. She understood that. She understood what mattered to her, that she was loved completely, that I would never leave her. And the rest? She's saving that question for when she's older. Amara's voice softened by 1 degree. She is a very strategic child. Despite everything sitting between them on that table, something flickered at the corner of his mouth. Takes after her mother, he said. Amara pressed her lips together hard. What do you want, Jung? She said instead. From tonight, from this conversation, what do you actually want? No performance, no armor, just the raw answer. I want to know my daughter. Okay. And I want to know, he stopped. Say it. I want to know if there's anything left between us worth not walking away from. The cafe hummed around them. Creole music from the counter. Rain on glass. The ordinary sounds of a world that had no idea what was happening at this corner table. You would need to change, she said. I know. Not adjust, not restructure, change. I know what I said. Your world cannot touch her. Not one corner, not one person from it, not one night she could accidentally overhear. I understand. I'm not negotiating. I'm telling you the only condition that exists. Amara, he leaned forward just slightly. I understand. She searched his face for the place where men say things they don't mean. She didn't find it. That was the most frightening thing that had happened all night. Words are a beginning, she said finally. Then let me begin. His phone buzzed on the table between them. Vivienne's name on the screen. They both saw it. He reached for it, paused, looked at Amara. Answer it, she said. He picked it up. Vive. Her voice was controlled, the way a room is controlled after someone has been packing it for 40 minutes. Are you coming back tonight? No. A pause long enough to have furniture in it. If you tell me this woman is nothing, and then stay out because of her. I'm not going to tell you she's nothing. Silence, a completely different kind. Who is she? She's the woman I was with before you. He looked at Amara while he said it. She gave him nothing. And she has something I need to understand tonight. Something. Vivienne's voice was very quiet now. I'll explain everything tomorrow, face to face. You deserve that. I deserve more than that. You're right, he said. You do. He hung up, put the phone face down on the table. Neither of them mentioned the call. Be honest with her, Amara said. I will be. Tonight wasn't her fault. No, it wasn't. She looked at me like a threat, a beat. I'm not a threat. I know what you are. Quiet, certain. You're the thing I couldn't get over pretending I got over. She probably knew that before tonight. Women always know. Amara looked out the rain-streaked window. Be careful with her, she said. I will. And be careful with me. My threshold for carelessness right now is exactly 0. Understood. And be especially careful with Nuri. Amara. I mean it more than I've meant anything. I know. His voice carried something old and settled. I have never been more certain of anything. I will not be careless with Nuri. Not once. Not ever. You have my word. She waited. Words are a beginning, she said again. I know, he nodded. Let me begin. No SUV. No driver. He borrowed Kang's ordinary car and she noticed the choice immediately. Noticed what it meant. He was already paying attention and that terrified her in a way she wasn't prepared for. The city moved past wet and lit. And then she saw it, Nuri's small pink umbrella on the back seat, left there that morning. She'd meant to bring it upstairs. Jung-Nu saw it too. He said nothing, but his hands tightened on the wheel by 1 fraction. She's going to have questions, Amara said. I know. She is not a shy child. I would expect nothing less. She might test you. Children should test people who show up late. Simple, already made peace with it. I would want her too. Amara glanced at him, looked away. How do you want to do this? He said. Meeting her, I follow your lead completely, your rules, your timeline. Saturday, breakfast, you're a friend, nothing formal. I'll tell her more when I understand what more means. Saturday. Don't bring anything. What should I? Nothing. Bring yourself and hope that's enough for her. And if it's not, come back the next Saturday and try again. He pulled up outside the laundromat. The apartment windows above were lit. Miss Celestine's silhouette moved behind the curtain. Thank you, Amara said, hand on the door. For what? The umbrella, at the beginning, before you even knew who I was. He turned and looked at her directly. I would have done it anyway. She got out, took her container, didn't look back. He sat there until her door closed at the top of the stairs. Then he drove into the rain and didn't turn the radio on once. Miss Celestine was on the couch, coat on, purse in her lap, watching the door with the expression of a woman who had been constructing a case in her head since those headlights appeared outside. Who was that? Good evening, Miss Celestine. Don't good evening me. Who was that man? A friend. Nobody drives a borrowed car to a woman's door at this hour. unless they are nervous or guilty. Maybe both. Miss Celestine stood, pulled her gloves on with the precision of someone making a point through accessories. Nuri ate, finished her reading, drew Gerald in 4 different outfits. She moved toward the door, stopped. Is this man going to be a problem? I don't know yet. Is he good? He wants to be. Miss Celestine considered this carefully. Wanting to be good and being good are 2 entirely different neighborhoods, baby. I know. Just making sure you know. She left. Amara went to Nuri's door and opened it a crack. Her daughter was asleep, one arm around Gerald, one leg hanging off the edge of the mattress, face completely open in the way that only sleeping children and people without debt ever manage. She stood in that doorway for a long time. She had said the thing, the 7-year thing, and she had expected it to feel like setting something down. She hadn't expected it to feel like picking up something new, heavier, more complicated, more alive. Nuri, she thought, what did I just start? He was 7 minutes early on Saturday. She knew because she watched the clock, and she was not going to tell anyone she watched the clock. The knock was careful. The knock of someone who understood they were standing at a door they hadn't earned the right to walk through easily. Not yet. She opened it. Plain dark sweater. No jewelry. No watch she could see. He had listened. He brought nothing except himself and the specific tension of a man trying very hard to look like he isn't trying, and failing at it in a way that was somehow more honest than succeeding would have been. You're early, she said. I've been sitting in the car for 20 minutes. She stepped back, let him in. He took the apartment in slowly. Crayon drawings on every wall, small shoes by the door, Gerald on the couch, the smell of butter and batter rolling out of the kitchen. He looked at all of it the way you look at something you're memorizing because you're afraid you might not get to see it again. Then a small figure appeared in the kitchen doorway. Pajamas, wild hair, Gerald held by the neck, and the most precise, unblinking, evaluating eyes Jung-Nu had ever seen on someone who still had all their baby teeth. She looked at him, fully, without any embarrassment whatsoever. He looked at her. He saw the eyes immediately, gold-scented, brown, his. He worked very hard to keep his face still. Are you my dad? No warm-up, no preamble, straight to the thing that mattered. He looked at Amara. She gave him the smallest nod. He crouched down to her level. The man whose name made entire rooms recalibrate. Eye level with a 7-year-old and more uncertain than he had been in his entire adult life. I think I am, he said. Is that okay with you? Nuri looked at Gerald briefly, as if consulting, then back at Jung-Nu. Do you know how to make pancakes? No. Okay. She walked past him toward the kitchen. Mama will teach you. You practice. Maybe next time you come, you make them. Jung-Nu straightened up slowly. He turned and found Amara across the room, pressing her lips together, in a way that was doing an enormous amount of work. He looked like someone had handed him the entire world wrapped in a pajama set, and he didn't know where to put it, and he did not care even slightly. Breakfast was the most important and most chaotic meal of his life, and he wouldn't have traded 1 second of it. Nuri ran the operation, established within 4 minutes. She assigned seats. She decided juice allocations. She asked questions with the packing of someone who had been storing them up for a specific occasion, and that occasion was now. Do you have a dog? No. Why not? I travel a lot. Where do you go? Different cities. For what? Work. What kind of work? I run businesses. What kind of? Nuri, Amara cut in smooth as water. Eat your pancake. 1 bite, I's never leaving Jung-Nu. Gerald wants to know if you're staying, she said. That's up to your mama. She turned. Mama. We'll figure it out. Nuri turned back to Jung-Nu and dropped her voice to the register of someone sharing classified information. That means yes in grown-up. He kept his face completely neutral. Good to know. Nuri announced, She needed to show Gerald something urgent requiring privacy, and left the kitchen. The quiet that followed had a different weight to it. "She's extraordinary," Jung-Nu said. "I know. She has your eyes," Amara said it simply. "Everyone who's ever known you sees it in about 4 seconds. Does that bother you?" "It used to." She moved her plate. "Now I'm used to loving things that remind me of you." She heard herself, set her fork down with slightly too much care. He didn't move toward it, didn't rush it, just let it exist on the table between them like it had every right to be there. "I ended things with Vivienne," he said. "Young. That has nothing to do with tonight. That conversation was already overdue. She knew it. I knew it. She deserved someone fully present, and I was never fully there. I don't want to be the reason someone gets hurt." "You're not the reason. I am. I was always looking in the wrong direction." He paused. "I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish before you decide what it means." "Say it." 7 years ago, I was building something I told myself was necessary. Power, control, security, everything I convinced myself would eventually make room for a real life. The armor in his voice was gone, completely. I have sat in rooms full of dangerous people for 7 years and felt completely at home. And I have never, not one single time, felt as completely right as I did standing on a wet sidewalk, holding an umbrella over a woman selling muffins who didn't need saving and never asked me for anything. The kitchen was very quiet. From Nuri's room, the muffled sound of a very serious conversation between a child and a giraffe about something that required full attention. "You have to change," Amara said, soft voice, iron underneath. "I'm not saying this again after today, not adjusted, not managed around the edges, real change. I know. It will take time, and I may not trust you right away. Some days I will look at you and feel nothing but grief for what we lost, and I will need you to sit with that without making it about you. I can do that. Your world cannot exist anywhere near her. Not one person from it. Not one phone call she could overhear. Not one night that bleeds into her morning. I know. Then say something that means something." He looked at her directly. "I'm already restructuring, making calls. It won't happen overnight. I won't insult you by pretending it will. But it is happening. And it started the night you told me about Nuri. Not from guilt, not from obligation." A beat. "Because I sat in that car driving away from your building and I thought, I have a daughter. And I thought, what kind of man does she deserve to walk through that door every Saturday?" Amara held his gaze for a long moment. "The pancakes need work," she said. He blinked. "What?" "Too much heat, not enough patience." She picked up her fork. "Story of your life." And for the first time since Martin Street, since the rain and the umbrella and the muffins on wet concrete, Jung-Nu smiled. A real one. The kind that changed his whole face into something that had nothing to do with power or control or the empire he'd spent 7 years building. "Teach me," he said. "I'll consider it," she said. Nuri came back. Gerald was now wearing what appeared to be a doll's blazer that belonged to a completely different toy. She climbed into her chair, folded her hands on the table, and looked at both of them with the settled energy of someone who had reached an important conclusion during her absence. "Okay," she said. Both adults looked at her. "Gerald says you can come back next Saturday," pointed at Jung-Nu, "but you have to practice the pancakes, and Gerald goes on the couch, not the floor." "Understood." "And Mama has rules. You follow all of them, even the ones she doesn't say out loud." "How will I know the ones she doesn't say out loud?" Nuri looked at him with the specific expression of someone who cannot believe this is a real question. "You pay attention," she said. Amara turned toward the counter and made a sound she converted into a cough. Jung-Nu nodded at Nuri with complete and total seriousness. "I will pay attention." "Good." She picked up her fork, ate a bite, looked up. "More butter next time. The pancakes needed more butter." "Noted." "Gerald prefers blueberry." "I'll remember." "Okay." Another bite, then tilting her head slightly. "You have nice eyes." "Thank you." Mama has the same color. Thoughtful, eating. Maybe that's why you match. Neither adult said a single word. Nuri finished her pancake, entirely satisfied that the important matters of the morning had been properly resolved. 6 months later, the sign on the corner of Martin and Fifth read Amara's Sweet Things in brown and gold, hand-painted. The smell of brown butter and vanilla came through the door every morning at 7, and by 9 there was a line Amara had finally stopped being surprised by. She was practicing accepting things she had built with her own hands. It was a daily practice. She was getting better at it. Nuri updated the chalkboard menu every Saturday in her own handwriting, large, slanted. Entirely confident, and it had become something people mentioned without anyone deciding it should be a thing. It just was. Jung-Nu had funded the space. That was true, and she was not going to pretend it wasn't. But the more important truth was that he had stood in this kitchen 3 weeks ago and gotten flour across a sweater that cost more than her weekly revenue and hadn't mentioned it once. Not once. He'd kept working and asked where she kept the extra mixing bowls. He was changing, not dramatically, not in a way that made a clean announcement. It was the slow, unglamorous, daily work of dismantling things he had built into his identity for a decade. There were setbacks. There were calls he still had to take that he took outside and away from the window. There were nights she could hear something in his voice when he said goodnight that told her the work wasn't finished. But he was doing it, every Saturday, showing up, paying attention. Nuri had decided he was acceptable. She hadn't said this directly. She'd said it the way 7-year-olds say the things that matter most, by saving him the seat beside her at breakfast without being asked, by telling Gerald things in front of him she didn't tell strangers. And then one ordinary Tuesday morning, she'd looked up from her cereal while he was pouring coffee and said Baba like it cost her nothing, like it was just a word she'd always had, and then immediately left the room like she hadn't said anything at all. He sat at the kitchen table for 4 minutes afterward. Amara put coffee in front of him and went back to the stove, and neither of them said a single word about it. Some Saturdays she was grateful he was there in a way that felt clean and uncomplicated. Some Saturdays the grief of 7 lost years came up suddenly and completely, in the middle of a sentence, in the middle of laughing at something Nuri said, and she had to go stand in the kitchen and breathe and focus on batter until it passed. He was learning to read those days, learning to stay present without crowding her, learning that loving her now meant making room for the ways she was still carrying what loving him had once cost her. Miss Celestine had officially upgraded her assessment from possibly a problem to jury still deliberating. For Miss Celestine, this was functionally a standing ovation. Saturday morning, early, city light just clearing the tops of the buildings. Jung-Nu was at the counter, Nuri on her step stool beside him, arms folded, the expression of a very serious judge on a very serious cooking program. "Rounder," she said. "I've been practicing. Last week they were ovals. These are circles. Almost circles." She tilted her head. "Gerald says they still look a little sad." "Gerald," he said carefully, "is a giraffe. Gerald has opinions. I've noticed. More butter." We discussed the butter at length. "Baba," flat final, "more butter." He added more butter, did not argue, he was learning. Amara stood in the doorway with her coffee and watched them, the flour on the counter, the step stool. Gerald propped against the fruit bowl, observing everything with his sewn-on eyes like a very small, silent investor in the proceedings. She thought about the sidewalk, the rain, 6 muffins on wet concrete, and the way she had picked every single one up because she had done the math and she needed them, and she was not going to be embarrassed by needing things. She thought about an umbrella appearing over her head before he even knew who she was. She thought about her name in his mouth after 7 years of silence hitting her like a door she had been leaning against, her whole body suddenly opening. She looked at her daughter on the step stool, telling her father his circles needed improvement. She thought, this is what I kept the door open for. Even when I told myself I had closed it. Even in Baltimore. Even on the worst nights when Nuri was sick and I was exhausted, and I held myself together with nothing but the certainty that I had made the right choice. something in me kept the door open. And one day it rained. And someone brought an umbrella. And here we are. The sun came fully through the kitchen window, fell across the counter, across the almost circles, across a little girl on a step stool, and a man learning, slowly, imperfectly, completely, how to stay. Queens, we made it to the end of their story, and I need to sit here with you for just a moment before we close. Amara kept Nuri from Jung-Nu for 7 years. She made that choice alone, in a bathroom in Baltimore, looking at a pregnancy test, deciding what her daughter's life was going to look like. And watching where they are now, watching Nuri say Baba like she was born knowing that word, I need to ask you something real. Was Amara right? Or did she take something from Jung-Nu that no one had the right to take, no matter the reason? Drop your honest answer in the comments right now. Don't think about it too long. Just say what you actually feel. Because this story doesn't end in that kitchen, it ends in what you carry out of it. And if this found you at the right moment, if something in Amara felt like something you've lived or something you've survived, share this with a woman who needs to hear it today. Not as a number, as an act of care. Because some stories exist to reach the right person at the right time. Subscribe and stay with us, because we are building something in this space that is made specifically, intentionally, and unapologetically for you, and we are nowhere near finished. Nuri looked up one more time. Next Saturday, she said. Blueberry, more butter, don't be late. Yes, ma'am, Jung-Nu said. And outside, on the corner of Martin and Fifth, the city moved loud and ordinary, and completely unaware that in a small, warm kitchen above a laundromat, something broken for 7 years had finally, carefully, stubbornly chosen to heal.